12 signs, 12 worlds, one story, made just for you. Welcome Zodiac Sleep Channel. Find your sign, find your story, sleep, and if you want more, subscribe. We'll be here, every sign, every week, waiting for you. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Zodiac Sleep Channel. Tonight's story belongs to Taurus, to the one who knows the value of slow things, the one who understands, in a way that most people have forgotten, that the best things take time, that an olive tree needs decades to give its finest fruit, that bread needs hours to rise, that a life worth living is built not in a day but in 1,000 ordinary days that accumulate into something extraordinary. To the one who has been told more than once that they are too stubborn, too resistant to change, too attached to what they have, as if knowing what you love and refusing to let it go carelessly were weaknesses, as if rootedness were something to be ashamed of. Tonight's story is about Pedri. He is 24 years old. He is a farmer in Andalusia, an olive grower, which is to say, he has chosen a life that measures itself in seasons and centuries rather than quarters and promotions. Tonight, he is sitting in his olive grove under the stars at the end of a long day, finally letting the night hold him. Get comfortable. Take a slow breath. Feel the ground beneath you. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The harvest had taken 3 weeks. 3 weeks of early mornings and late evenings, of hands moving through the branches with the particular rhythm that Pedri had learned from his father, and his father had learned from his father. The rhythm that was not efficient by the standards of the machines that some of the larger farms in the valley use now, but that was right in a way that efficiency could not quite measure. His hands knew the trees. His hands knew which branches needed the most attention, which olives were ready and which needed one more day, which trees were tired and which were giving everything they had this season. He had been doing this since he was 6 years old. The grove had been in his family for 4 generations. His great-grandmother had planted the newest trees, newest being a relative term since those trees were now 60 years old and had the particular solidity of things that had grown slowly and taken root deeply, the solidity that could not be faked or rushed or manufactured, only waited for. He was 24 years old. He knew how to wait. This was not something that had come naturally to him. He had been impatient once, as a child, as a teenager, in the way that young people were impatient when the world seemed to be moving very fast around them, and standing still felt like falling behind. He had wanted to leave. He had planned to leave. At 17, he had told his father that he was going to university in Seville, that he was going to study something practical and get a job in the city and make money in a way that didn't depend on the weather. His father had said, "Wait a year." He had waited a year, and then another, and somewhere in those 2 years, something had shifted. Not dramatically, not in the way of a sudden revelation, but slowly, the way things shifted in Andalusia, which was to say almost imperceptibly, until one day you looked up and realized that you were somewhere entirely different from where you had been. He was a Taurus. He had come to understand what this meant, not through astrology, which he found interesting in the abstract and slightly embarrassing in the personal, but through experience, through the particular way his body responded to seasons, His particular resistance to change that he had once thought was a flaw and had come to understand was more like a root system, the thing that kept him connected to what was real even when the world above the ground was moving faster than made sense. Roots were not weakness. Roots were how you survived the storm. Tonight, he sat at the edge of the grove. The harvest was done. The olives were in the press. The oil would be ready in 2 days, and it would be the best oil the grove had produced in 5 years. He was certain of this, the way he was certain of most things, slowly, through accumulated evidence, through the particular knowledge that came from paying attention to the same thing over a long period of time. He was very good at paying attention. He was less good at letting his attention rest. Tonight, he was going to try. Chapter 2. The olive trees at night were different from the olive trees in the day. In the day, they were working trees, productive, purposeful, their silver-green leaves catching the Andalusian sun in the particular way that olive leaves had caught the Mediterranean sun for thousands of years. Their fruit heavy now after the long growing season, their branches still holding the memory of the harvest, even though the harvest was done. Working trees in a working landscape, in a working life. At night, they were something else. The same trees, the same gnarled trunks and silver leaves, but transformed by the darkness into something more ancient, more mysterious, more themselves. The moonlight did something to them, made the silver in their leaves visible in a different way, made the shapes of the older trunks look like they were moving slowly, with the particular patience of things that had been doing this for a very long time and intended to keep doing it for a very long time more. Pedri had always loved the grove at night. This was not the Taurus cliché, the earth sign, the lover of beauty, the one who appreciated the physical world with a sensuality that other signs found excessive. Or it was that, but it was also more than that. He loved the grove at night because at night the grove stopped being an asset and became a place again. Stopped being the thing he was responsible for and became the thing he belonged to. There was a difference and it mattered to him, and he had spent years trying to explain it to people who asked why he didn't sell the property, which had become valuable, significantly valuable, as the demand for quality olive oil had grown and the land in the valley had been bought up by people from the cities who saw opportunity where he saw home. He had not sold. He would not sell. This was the thing that people called stubbornness, and that he called something else, not even loyalty exactly, because loyalty implied a choice, and this had never felt like a choice. It felt like the opposite of a choice. Like the trees themselves, he had simply put down roots in this specific soil, and the idea of being transplanted, of growing somewhere else, produced in him the particular visceral resistance that Taurus was apparently known for, and that he experienced not as an emotion, but as a physical fact, as real as the ground under his feet. The ground under his feet was very real tonight. He had taken off his boots. He did this sometimes after a long day, sat on the old stone wall at the edge of the grove and took off his boots and put his feet on the earth, which sounds simple and is also, for someone who spent their days working the ground, something more than simple, a closing of a circuit, a return. The earth was cool now. The day's heat had moved into it and been held and was now releasing slowly back into the night air. the particular warmth that the ground gave off after sunset that was different from the warmth of the air, deeper and more patient and somehow more generous, as if the earth were offering back what it had taken all day to absorb. He pressed his feet into it. He breathed. Chapter 3. Most of the people he had grown up with had left. This was not unusual. It was, in fact, the story of rural Andalusia for the last 50 years, the gradual emptying of the villages as the young people went to Seville or Madrid or further, following the work and the opportunity and the particular pull of the city that was so powerful and so well advertised that resisting it required a specific kind of stubbornness that not everyone had. Pedri had it. Not all of his friends understood this. Tomas had left at 18 and was now in Barcelona, working in tech, sending occasional messages that contained a particular quality of cheerfulness that Pedri had come to recognize as the cheerfulness of someone who had made a choice and needed it to be the right choice. He was happy for Tomas. He was also aware that Tomas's messages always contained, somewhere beneath the cheerfulness, a question that was never quite asked. Why are you still there? His cousin Elena had asked it directly last Christmas. She had come back for the holidays the way she always did, arriving from Madrid with gifts and energy and the particular restlessness of someone who had been still for too long, and on the second day, she had sat across from him at the kitchen table and said, "Pedri, don't you want more?" He had thought about this carefully. He had said, "I have the grove, I have the house, I have the oil and the land and the seasons and the particular quality of this light at this time of year. What more are you talking about?" She had not been satisfied with this answer. He understood her dissatisfaction. He even, in certain moods, shared it. The awareness that he had chosen a life that was complete in itself, but that was also, by certain metrics, small. No career trajectory, no professional development, no networking events or growth opportunities or whatever language the city used for the relentless forward motion that it seemed to require of everyone who lived in it. Just this, the grove and the seasons and the oil and the light, and the particular knowledge accumulated over 24 years of living in the same place and paying attention to it with the Taurus patience that was, he had come to understand not stubbornness, but depth. The knowledge of what this specific piece of earth smelled like after rain, what the oldest tree in the grove sounded like in the wind, which way the swallows flew in October, what the silence here contained that no other silence anywhere else contained. This knowledge was not transferable. You could not carry it with you if you left. You could not acquire it anywhere else. It existed only here, only in this body, only after this many years of not leaving. He looked at the oldest tree. It was 300 years old. It had been here before his family, before the village, before the road that connected the village to the next one. It would be here after him. It did not know about Barcelona or Madrid or career trajectories. It knew about this soil and this light and this particular angle of the Andalusian sky. He thought that was a reasonable thing to know. Chapter 4. He could smell the rain coming, not immediately, tomorrow probably, or the day after. The particular quality of the air had changed in the late afternoon, a certain heaviness that he had learned to read over years of watching the same sky from the same hill. The way the light had gone slightly different in the last hour before sunset, the way the oldest trees had done something subtle with their leaves that he couldn't have explained to anyone who hadn't spent years watching them. But that meant, clearly and unmistakably, that water was on its way. The grove needed rain. The harvest was done, but the trees still needed the autumn rains that would prepare them for winter, that would replenish what the long, dry summer had taken, that would begin the slow process of restoration that was the other side of the productive cycle, not the giving, not the harvest, but the receiving, the being replenished, the rest that made the next giving possible. He had been thinking about this lately, the receiving side of things, the being replenished, the rest. He was, by temperament and by choice, a giving person. Not in a selfless way. He was not particularly selfless, was in fact quite clear about what was his and what he needed and what he would not give away, which people sometimes called selfishness, and which he understood as the Taurus instinct for self-preservation that was not the same thing as selfishness, no matter how similar it looked from the outside. But in the practical sense, he gave his time and his attention and his physical effort to the grove, to the land, to the work that needed doing, with the particular thoroughness of someone who did not do things halfway. He did not do things halfway. This was both his greatest strength and the thing that most tired him, the inability to be partial, to give less than everything, to decide that something was done before it actually was. The harvest that took 3 weeks, because 3 weeks was what it took, and he would not cut it short. The oil press that he had repaired himself over 4 days, because 4 days was how long it took to do it correctly. The old stone wall around the grove that he rebuilt by hand 2 summers ago, because the wall was part of the place, and the place deserved a wall that was built the way walls here had always been built. Everything properly, everything completely, everything at the pace the thing itself required. He was tired tonight in the way he was tired after every harvest. The deep physical tiredness that was also a satisfaction, the way a Taurus was tired after doing the work completely, which was different from ordinary tiredness, which was the tiredness of tasks left undone or done poorly. This was the tiredness of completion. He had earned this night. He lay back on the earth. The stars above him were very clear. This far from the city, at this altitude, at this time of year, the sky was the sky that people had been looking at for thousands of years from this same hill, unchanged, except by the seasons and the slow rotation of the earth that made the constellations shift over decades as if the sky itself were slowly breathing. He found the bull, his sign, the Taurus constellation, patient and present in the autumn sky, as it always was. He looked at it for a long time. Chapter 5. He thought about what the earth knew, not metaphorically. He was not a metaphorical thinker. He was a concrete thinker, a practical thinker, a thinker who trusted information that came through his hands and his body more than information that came through abstraction. The earth knew things. The soil in this grove had been absorbing information for centuries. The rainfall, the temperature, the root systems of 4 generations of trees, the particular chemistry of this specific hillside in this specific valley, in this specific part of Andalusia that made the oil here taste different from the oil anywhere else. He knew this taste. He had grown up with it. There was a restaurant in Seville that used his oil. A good restaurant. A restaurant where people who understood food came to eat food that had been made with attention. And the chef there, a serious woman named Rocio, who spoke about ingredients with the kind of precision that Pedri respected because it matched his own, had told him once that his oil tasted like the place it came from. He had not been sure whether this was a compliment. He had decided it was. Taurus, the description said, was deeply connected to the physical world. The sign of the senses, taste, smell, touch, the particular way of knowing that came through the body rather than the mind. He had always found this to be accurate and slightly reductive, the way accurate descriptions of complex things were often slightly reductive. Yes, he trusted his senses. Yes, the physical world was real to him in a way that he suspected it was not entirely real to everyone. Yes, he found pleasure in simple things. The smell of the earth after rain, the weight of a good tool in his hand, the taste of bread he had made himself, the particular quality of silence in the grove after the harvest was done. But it was not just the senses, it was the time underneath the senses, the patience required to develop them to the point where they told you things that could not be told any other way, the years of paying attention to the same smells and textures and tastes, until they became a language, until the soil told him things about its health, and the trees told him things about their needs, and the sky told him things about the weather that no app or forecast could have told him with the same precision. This was the Taurus gift that nobody talked about. Not the stubbornness, and not the materialism, and not the love of comfort, though those things were also true. The patience, the willingness to stay in one place long enough to understand it completely, the understanding that depth was only available to people who stopped moving long enough to go down rather than out. He went down rather than out. He always had. The earth under his back was giving him back its warmth now. Slowly, generously, the way the earth gave things back, he closed his eyes. Not to sleep, not yet, just to feel without seeing, which was its own kind of knowing, the kind that required the eyes to be still. Chapter 6. The night had its own music. He had always known this, but tonight it was particularly clear. The crickets in the dry grass, the particular chorus of them, thousands of individual insects, each contributing a single sustained note to a sound that was, collectively, something much larger than any individual note. The distant dog from the next farm over, its bark occasional and matter-of-fact, not alarmed, just present. The olive leaves moving in the small wind that came down from the hills after sunset, which was different from the daytime wind, slower and cooler and carrying the smells of the higher ground, thyme and stone, and the particular sharpness of the air above the tree line. He listened to all of it. He was good at listening. This was not separate from the Taurus patience. It was the same thing, the same quality of attention applied to sound rather than soil. The same willingness to be still long enough to hear what was there rather than what you expected to hear or hoped to hear or were afraid of hearing. He had been still enough tonight. He had been thinking in the way that Taurus thought, not quickly, not in leaps, but thoroughly, returning to the same point from different angles until it was understood from all sides, like walking around a tree to understand its full shape. about what Elena had said at Christmas. Don't you want more? He had an answer now that he hadn't had then. He wanted exactly this. Not as a consolation, not the way you wanted what you had when you couldn't have what you really wanted. He wanted this in the primary sense, the original sense, the way you wanted water when you were thirsty, and not as a substitute for something else, but as the actual thing your body required. He wanted the earth and the trees and the oil and the seasons. He wanted the knowledge that accumulated in his hands year after year. He wanted to be the person who knew this specific place completely. He wanted to be standing in this grove in 30 years and in 60, adding his own layer to what 4 generations had already laid down, being added to in turn by whoever came after him. This was not small. He had been told it was small. He had spent several years half believing it was small. It was not small. It was the entire thing. The crickets continued, the leaves moved, the stars moved very slowly in their ancient paths. He was exactly where he needed to be. He had always been exactly where he needed to be. He had just sometimes let other people's voices be louder than the voice of the grove. He would work on that. Not tonight. Tonight, he would just listen. Chapter 7. He didn't decide to sleep. He simply stopped not sleeping. This was how it worked for him, had always worked, not the active pursuit of sleep that some people described, the lying down and the deliberate relaxing, and the various techniques for coaxing a reluctant mind toward unconsciousness. His mind was not reluctant. His mind, when the work was done and the day was complete, and he was lying on the ground with the earth giving back its warmth, and the crickets doing what crickets did, and the Taurus constellation patient overhead, simply stopped having things to say. Not because there was nothing to think about, because everything had been thought about enough. The harvest was done. The oil was pressing. The rain was coming. The grove was well. The wall was sound. The oldest tree was 300 years old and would be 301 next year, and the year after that it would be 302. And the accumulation of those years was the most reliable thing Pedri knew, more reliable than any plan or forecast or promise. The particular reliability of things that grew slowly and changed slowly and required nothing of you except attention and care and the willingness to show up every morning regardless of how you felt. He showed up every morning. This was the Taurus promise to itself. Not the dramatic gestures, not the grand ambitions, not the sudden transformations that other signs seem to require of themselves. Just this, showing up, day after day, season after season, year after year, being present in the same place with the same attention, accumulating the kind of knowledge and the kind of relationship with a place that was only possible through time. He had time. He was 24 years old. He had the grove and the house and the seasons and 60 more years ahead of him, if the body held, and the body tended to hold for people who used it honestly and fed it well and let it rest when resting was what it needed. He was letting it rest now. The earth was warm under him. The crickets were very close. The Taurus constellation was exactly where it always was. He thought about the oil. The best oil in 5 years. He would taste it in 2 days, and it would be exactly what he knew it would be. Dense and golden, and carrying in it the particular quality of this year's growing season, this year's rain and sun and soil, this specific harvest by these specific hands in this specific place. Irreplaceable. Like most things worth having, his breathing slowed. The night continued around him. The crickets, the leaves, the slow stars. The earth giving back its warmth in the dark. The old trees standing the way old trees stood, without effort, without drama, simply rooted, simply present, completely themselves. Pedri slept, not away from the grove, in it. The way the oldest tree stood, rooted deeply, reaching slowly, completely sure of where it was. He slept the way the olive oil tasted. Dense, patient, completely of this place, impossible to find anywhere else. Somewhere in Andalusia, in an olive grove that has been here for centuries, a young man is sleeping on the earth. The harvest is done. The oil is pressing, the rain is coming, and Pedri sleeps, not somewhere else, not in someone else's idea of a better life. Here, rooted, completely himself. The oldest tree stands, as it always has, as it always will. Good night, Taurus.